Chad and I have very complementary presentations with a slightly point of view. And I have 3 points in my talk. I am going to talk about what pension design is best for the teacher labor market. I will talk about how to improve the design that most teachers have now. 89% of teachers have a certain pension design, this defined benefit design. And then I'm going to make the point that a real pension crisis would be the wrong design for this workforce. So let's talk about what a pension does. First and foremost, it is an employer tool, and in this case, it's school districts and the taxpayer, to optimize the compensation of their workforce. That a good pension system for the teacher labor market would be one that recruits and retains the best teachers. I can agree with that. So a pension design or a pension system that encourages teachers to work long after their productivity has declined would be a failure. Okay, so let's examine our certain system to see if it does that. But having the right design of pensions to encourage people who you want to stay at exactly the right moment you want them to stay, and a pension design that encourages workers to leave right when you want them to leave is a neat trick, and that's what you do when you have a pension design, but it's a worthy trick. You need to have a design that gets the incentives right, and that's what we've been doing in the teacher labor market for the past 45 years. So I've concluded in all of my research that even though the defined benefit system may not be right for some workers in the private sector and may not be right for some other kinds of workers in the public sector, it's a pretty good design for the teacher labor market, the public sector teacher labor market. But it can be improved. So as I started to say, you need to have a pension design that does this trick. Recruits and retains the teachers when they're on the upswing of their productivity development. You want to keep them when they are maintaining that productivity and slightly improving, and you certainly want to encourage them to leave when their productivity declines. And if I could have Chad's 6th slide. Thank you, Chad. I knew you would do this for me. Okay. Oh, I need to turn it on. I don't know where the slides are. That's all right. You remember it. It was the slide which showed that the defined benefit accrual went like this, and then it peaked, and then it went down. That turns out to be a darn good design. Thank you. This guy. So first, this one's really important on what's happened to teacher labor markets. We look at that again. About the mean tenure is about 15 years in both. In the mode, but in both. They're about, what is it in the red one? Yeah, I don't care about the mode so much. The average tenure for a teacher is about the same in both. It's just that in the red, the more recent period, you're having young people actually coming into the system that may replace. But I really care about those middle guys, 10 years to 25 years, because we know from teacher productivity studies that that's where you have the teachers with the most productivity, meaning you have the best outcome for students is that year. Let's take a look at this design. That's actually a pretty clever design for teacher labor market. You have hardly any accrual in the first 10 years of their training period, and then you have a rapid increase in their accrual right when mostly these women and men could go someplace else. At their prime age, they're facing a compensation scheme where if they stay longer, and the taxpayer actually gets a rate of return from that training, that they have the incentive to stay longer. They're looking ahead and saying, I've got to stay, right when you're at the most risk of losing them. So it's actually a quite clever design. And then right when studies show that productivity starts to decline, so does their pension accrual. So if I was going to create a pension design with this labor market de novo, it would look something like that. It would rapidly increase the accrual right when my employees were at most risk of leaving, the ones I want to keep, and that it would actually start declining in its benefit right when my workers' productivity was declining. So that is actually a really good graph for us to remember that it really works well for this market. We know that it's very hard to retain some of our best teachers in the schools where it's tougher to teach. School districts and reformers have looked for ways to actually provide bonuses and other incentives, more training, exactly for that teacher who has 10 to 30 years of experience, because they're at peak performance. The fact that we have a lot of turnover between 0 and 5 years is a labor market that's working. We know from the U.S. labor market that there's a lot of turnover for young workers. The statistic that the average worker has 8 jobs in their life is accurate, and it's not new. That's been true since the 1940s when we started collecting statistics on the turnover of American workers. That period of job switching happens at the beginning of people's lives. That churning is what we call, among labor economists, shopping for the right fit. So if a lot of young people are coming into teaching and then leaving, that's quite appropriate. It's not sticking. The occupation's not sticking. And from the point of view of a school district or a taxpayer, I'm not quite sure you want a design that gives money to people who are training or looking for their job. If there's only a fixed amount of pension dollars to spend, you're not going to want to spend it for those early shoppers, job shoppers. You're going to want to spend it to retain your best teachers. So Chad and others have advocated really changing the defined benefit system. And I think, maybe not Chad, but there have been reformers that have advocated a wholesale change away from that system, that design that gradually accumulates and peaks for older teachers, to a cash balance system or to a 401k system. And there are certainly some school districts that have these stacked pension systems with a core defined benefit system, and then on top of that, a more portable cash balance system. The California market is a good example. Now, there are 2 benefits to the kind of design that Chad and others have advocated, moving away from DB and a more portable 401k. The 2 benefits are this: that you do put money in the pockets of younger people. You weight your pension dollar towards youth, and they may get something out of those few years of working, and it could be more portable. So those are the 2 advantages: that you give younger people more retirement money, and it's more portable. But there are 4 major costs to moving to that kind of design. The first one is that you've lost a very important way to reward the most productive teachers. Companies in the private sector have a lot more options to keep your key employees. They can provide stock options. They can do promotions into managerial positions. But you want teachers not to be superintendents or principals. You want them to be teachers. So in the teacher labor market, there's a little wiggle room for these kinds of tenure-weighted benefits. The defined benefit system provides that. Second, you have a double payment problem. If you don't want to cut benefits for people now and you move them into a cash balance or to a 401k system, you still have to pay benefits for the people who've remained. So it becomes very costly. The third part is that the third cost to have your benefit dollar being shifted to the younger workers is that you may encourage more turnover. Right when turnover and training is so expensive, you're going to increase your training cost, and you're going to decrease the average productivity of your labor workforce. Not a good pension design. And fourth, if you are advocating, Chad, moving teachers into a 401k system, hoping that nudging them into the right plan design choices, into the right investment choices, you are going to have the retirement crisis you have in the private sector that has moved to the 401k. People won't accumulate enough. They're going to make investment mistakes. They're going to pay very high fees and not get the rate of return that they could have in the defined benefit system. David talked about that. And you're going to leave them with lump sums and no practical way to deaccumulate those funds over a lifetime, which is the purpose of a pension system. So in closing, which always gives hope to the audience, I am more convinced that the defined benefit structure works well for this market. It's probably why most people in this market have a defined benefit system. It's survived the test of time. But there are 4 ways that we can improve the system so that we attract and retain the best teachers. One is that there should be equal pay for women in the teacher market. All the studies show that women do not get paid less. Women teachers get paid less than male teachers. So we need to pay more to women who enter and stay in the market, and we need to raise the pay for first-year teachers. Second, we need to fund this perfectly good design. We need to fund defined benefit systems. There are some states that have required public employers to fund the ARC, to fund the accrued required contribution. If you're going to make a promise, as David said, keep it. Third, we should look at ways to make these pension systems more portable. I don't know how many teachers cross state lines. I suspect it's not a lot, but if they do, they should be able to have a portable system like Social Security. And I support all public employees being moved gradually into the Social Security system. I totally agree with you on that. And fourth, there's got to be a way to fix the retiree health problem, retiree health care insurance problem, because part of compensation, part of pensions is actually how you pay for health care. So last, to redefine the title of this panel, a real pension crisis would be the wrong pension design for the teacher labor market.
Okay, great.